What's up, fight fans? So I present to you my open response to Oscar De La Hoya's open letter to fight fans. Now, this was a letter directly from Oscar De La Hoya and Golden Boy Promotions sent out to us in the media Monday night about 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. So this came out about 48 hours after Canelo-Alvarez and Gennady-Golovkin fought their rematch, which was a great fight, better than the first fight, more than exceeded expectations. So with this letter, there are some things in here that Oscar says that I absolutely agree with, but there are a lot of things in this letter that are very hypocritical that I completely, it's not that I disagree, it's his messaging. And I think he's being hypocritical with some of this rhetoric. Now, before I get into it, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, all right? I'm going to read the opening paragraph or so, and then I'm going to get into some just high points or highlights that I want to talk about and discuss. I will copy and paste it, though, word for word, no editing, in a pinned comment in this video. So those of you, I imagine most of you guys have already seen it. If you go on to the boxing scenes and all that stuff, it's posted there. If you haven't, I will post it in a pinned comment in this video. But before I get into that, unfortunately, because this is YouTube and it's the internet, I have to preface with some things, okay? Because by the end of this video, hell, probably 30 seconds in, I'm gonna either be accused of being a shill for Golden Boy / Oscar / Canelo, as I wear my Canelo-Alvarez cap just to troll some of you, or I'll be accused of being a shill for Tom Loffler / Triple G. It goes both ways, and I've been accused of both ad nauseum for months now, even this weekend after the fight. So let me preface before I get into this, okay, guys? Oscar De La Hoya, overall, love him or hate him as a promoter, go back to his fighting days, love him or hate him as a fighter. He has been great, not just good, but great for the sport of boxing. And that's not me shilling, that's me being honest. As a fighter, the guy was a badass. He fought everybody. He won some, lost some, but he took great challenges that we wished the fighters he passed the torch to did. A lot of fighters do not stick around long enough to pass the torch because they either want to protect themselves in controlled situations for big paydays at the end of their career, or they want to protect their O. Oscar was a fighter who passed the torch not only to Floyd Mayweather, but he passed the torch to Manny Pacquiao as well. He didn't need either of those fights, especially the Pacquiao fight. He took them. Yeah, he made a ton of money, but he also took, especially against Pacquiao, a bad L, but he passed that torch. Similarly to what Vladimir Klitschko did in the heavyweight division to Anthony Joshua, passing that torch, right? We've seen it time and time again. Bernard Hopkins did it. There's a lot of great fighters who have done it. Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao, they didn't do it. At least not yet. And I don't think either of them will. They're not going to pass on to the next generation. Oscar did that for us. So he deserves tremendous credit as a fighter for all of his accomplishments. As a promoter, there are plenty of things that he does and says that I don't like, that I am critical of. And I think that I have reasonable, justifiable criticisms of Oscar. However, as a promoter, there's plenty of things he does that I think are great for the sport, particularly American boxing. And he is a big part of why Los Angeles has become the Mecca. And I don't mean Mecca as far as where all the biggest fights are. That's obviously Las Vegas, which is basically a suburb of LA in terms of boxing, you know, the globe, the boxing map. But in terms of the gyms, where the fighters want to go train, where the best sparring in the world is, where the best club scene in the world is, that's Los Angeles. It's not New York, it's not Vegas, it's not London, it's not Tokyo, it's Los Angeles. Oscar has a lot to do with that. That's not me kissing his ass or shilling for him. That's me telling you guys the truth. And because I am going to criticize him a little bit here, I need to preface because of some of you damn trolls who are so sensitive, who are going to say all kinds of weird shit about me for criticizing Oscar. Let me just get that positive stuff out up front, okay? A lot of things he does that I like. Whether you love him or hate him as a promoter, he's been the lead promoter in the biggest event in the sport 2 years in a row. And he's been a part of the biggest events in the sport for several years now, at least a partial, a piece, a cog in the wheel. So, a lot of good things, but he is a promoter. And as a promoter, he's full of shit a lot of times. Promoters are basically politicians. They talk to fight fans the way politicians talk to voters. It's all about demographics. It's about telling this demographic what they want to hear, that demographic what they want to hear. It's no different than what politicians do. All of them do it. They're all full of shit. And you come to expect it as a member of the media. I know what I'm being told on the record sometimes is spin. Off the record, you can talk a little more with these guys and you get some of the truth out a little bit more. But they all do it. Tom Loffler does it just like Oscar De La Hoya does it. Oscar probably does it a lot more than Tom Loffler, but Oscar has a much bigger profile and a bigger company than Tom Loffler. But Bob Arum does it. Don King made millions of dollars doing it. Eddie Hearn does it. Frank Warren, they all do it. But they do it to different degrees. Also, spinning the truth, speaking in hyperbole, being a freaking hypocrite. I understand all of it, and I don't want to say it's justifiable, but it's understandable as you're building a fight, as you're negotiating a fight in the media, as you're promoting an event. I get it. But to do it after the fact, for Oscar to send this out to fans, this is a divisive letter. Dude, you got everything your way. Your fighter got the benefit of the doubt from the judges. 2 of the 3 judges this year, and last year you can argue 2 of the 3 judges, obviously Adelaide Byrd, but the judge who had it even, that was giving your fighter the benefit of the doubt in the first fight, where most feel he clearly lost. This fight was close, it could have went either way. But dude, the event's over. You won. Your fighter maintained his status. In fact, Canelo Alvarez's status grew as the premier attraction in boxing. And I get it, UK guys, Anthony Joshua puts 90,000 butts in seats. He does not bring anywhere near the revenue or international global money that then Canelo Alvarez brings. Okay, not even close yet. So, and now, if Canelo had lost this fight, I thought that dynamic might shift. It's not shifting yet. Canelo's the top guy. So for Oscar to put something like this out 48 hours after the biggest accomplishment of his promotional career and his marquee attraction fighter's career, it just comes off a little bit like rubbing salt in a wound, and it comes off divisive. For lack of a better word, it just comes off shitty. So anyway, one thing I want to address before I get started with this, and it is relevant to this letter. Adelaide Byrd, the judge who had a 10 rounds to 2, a 118 to 110 score for Canelo Alvarez last year, when most thought he won 4, maybe 5 rounds, if that, in the first fight. Adelaide Byrd turned in the worst score in a fight of that magnitude in maybe a decade. It was absolutely horrible. It was worse than the scores of, think about Bradley Pacquiao, where Bradley beat Pacquiao, but there was no score that widely ridiculous in that fight that I can remember. Correct me if I'm wrong. To be that wide and that off on a fight of that magnitude was disgusting, right? Oscar sends this letter 48 hours after the fact, blasting criticism and all that. Here's a fact that's missing from this letter. Adelaide Byrd scored not 1, not 2, but 3 fights on Golden Boy Promotions' Thursday night card. The card that was Thursday the 13th on ESPN2. She scored the main event. Adelaide Byrd, you're Golden Boy. You're the lead promoter. After everything, all the trouble you had with Adelaide Byrd, you let her score 3 fights on your Thursday night card, which is a preview, a pregame party, if you will, for the big, big show on Saturday. Golden Boy does this with every Canelo fight in Vegas. They have that fight on Thursday night. If you go and buy a ticket, you get a free VIP pass or whatever it is to the weigh-in Friday. So they did this. They did it last year with the first fight with Golovkin. They did that this year, and they had Adelaide Bird score 3 fights on that card, including the main event. Dude, what are you thinking, Oscar? And I got to include this, guys. One of the undercard fights on that Thursday night card, Isaac Zarate scored a split decision over Horacio Garcia. Why was it a split decision? 2 of the judges had it for Garcia, clearly. One judge had it 78-74, the other 77-75. Oh, I'm sorry, for Zarate, who was the clear winner in that fight. Guess who disagreed with those 2 judges and scored it for the clear loser, Garcia? One Adelaide Bird, who had it 77-75 for Horacio Garcia. So one of her 3 cards, the other 2 fights she scored were easy. A chimp could have scored those fights. The one fight, one of the 3 fights she scored on that card that had some close, difficult, competitive rounds to score, she got way far off, 4 or 5 points off from the other 2 judges. In other words, she turned in a typically consistently inconsistent Adelaide Bird card. A Golden Boy Promotions is A-okay with putting her back on a year after she completely screwed them with one of the worst scores we've seen in a decade. Let that sink in before I start this letter. All right, here we go. An open letter to fight fans from Oscar De La Hoya. Dear fight fans, on the night of Saturday, September 15th, fans were set to be treated to what sports should be all about. The 2 best athletes in the sport squaring off against each other, with the winner earning the title of the best in the business. This kind of an event where an individual can be called the best in any sport is truly rare. My only issue with that is no consensus, universally regarded panel or platform thought that these were the number 1 and number 2 fighters in the world. We all knew they were the best middleweights in the world, so I have an issue with the wording of that opening statement. And that's generally my issue with this letter. Now let me just say this real quick, guys. If you're doing an interview or you're ranting like I am right now, you're doing a podcast, whatever, you're just going off the cuff, you will say things that you wish you could have articulated better. There are plenty of tweets I've sent where I'm like, I could have worded that better. There are plenty of shows and rant videos and stuff I've done where I go back and I listen, I'm like, I could have said that better, I could have said this better. So I'm not trying to beat up on Oscar here, but when you have a carefully crafted, edited letter that no doubt went through several drafts, went around an office, and many people looked at it and chimed in, you can nitpick every damn sentence. So I'm going to do that here. Anyway, not the best 2 fighters in the world, at least not consensusly believed to be so. Most people think it's Vasily Lomachenko, Terrence Crawford, but the 2 best middleweights. So right there, that opening paragraph is hyperbole. Already, first paragraph. Not only did the fight itself deliver all that was promised against all kinds of pressure, Canelo Alvarez gave the performance of his lifetime to secure the unified middleweight championship of the world. Great sentence, completely agree. You're cool. All right, now let's get into some of the bullet points he has. One of them, he says, repeatedly ravaged for 2 positive drug tests that showed minor traces of clenbuterol, a common occurrence in Mexico due to the contamination of beef across the country. Common. Keep that word in the back of your mind. Canelo submitted to more than 20 drug tests in the lead up to the fight and passed them all with flying colors. Number 1, you don't pass a drug test. They collect a sample. They either find abnormalities or there are no abnormal findings. There's no passing or failing. It's not a written test, multiple choice. So that wording is wrong. And I admit it's wording I've used before. Guys, we have to stop saying a fighter passed or failed a drug test. You take a drug test, there's either abnormalities, they find something in it, or not. Anyway, I have a real beef, no pun intended, with the common occurrence in Mexico sentence here. Okay, Oscar, if this is a common occurrence in Mexico, number 1, when I think common occurrence, I think majority of the time. There are thousands of professional athletes in Mexico, thousands of amateur athletes, boxers, football players, right? How many have tested positive for clenbuterol? 60% of them, 70, 80% of them? It's actually less than 5% of them. So this is not a common occurrence. That is a relative term, relative to what you're talking about, right? The subtext, the context, I should say, of what you're talking about. It's not a common occurrence. It commonly happens in Mexico more than other parts of the world because there is contamination in beef. But it's not as if hundreds of Mexican boxers who fight in the United States or in Europe, other parts of the world, are popping for clenbuterol all the time. A handful of them have. But I don't like the use of the word common. But even if we want to stick with the common in Mexico thing, okay, if it is a common occurrence in Mexico and your marquee attraction is one Canelo Alvarez, why did you not take precautions to avoid him testing positive, not once, but twice for clenbuterol? If something is a common occurrence, maybe you don't tell the cab drivers you have signed to your company that you're building your prospects up against. Maybe you don't tell them. But I don't know, maybe I'm just crazy. If it were me, I would tell my marquee attraction, the guy who basically bankrolls my company because so many of my other promotions lose money, the guy who bankrolls tens of millions of dollars a year to my company, I'd be telling him what's going on about this clenbuterol thing and making sure that precautions are taken so that he doesn't test positive. So you're being a hypocrite in that statement. And by the way, ravaged, repeatedly ravaged for 2 positive drug tests. Nobody ravaged Canelo. Now, some fringe quasi-media outlets on the internet, fine. And look, I'll say it right now. You guys who follow me, you know this. I was ravaged. That's actually a good word. I got beat up just because I didn't immediately call Canelo Alvarez the red-headed Lance Armstrong when he tested positive. I waited until the information came out. I wrote a lot of stories. I did a lot of shows about it. Those of you who read Ring Magazine and Boxing Monthly Magazine saw my pieces where I talked to over a dozen experts in the field, including people who work at the labs, who test the samples that come in, who created the tests, both on the record and off the record, as part of those stories, the research for those stories. And I got absolutely beat up. There was idiots out there making 2-hour-long videos talking about me just because I didn't call Canelo Alvarez the worst thing since Hitler. Most media, legitimate media, guys like myself who write and work and contribute to legitimate publications that are respected in this sport, were very fair with Canelo and took our time. You guys know I'm on the Ring Ratings Committee. And we went back and forth for weeks, for months. What should we do about Canelo? Should we strip him? What should we do? We waited until the Nevada State Athletic Commission made a ruling and suspended him. Then we stripped him of his middleweight title and took him off the ratings. Okay, so I really don't like this word Oscar uses, that Canelo was ravaged for 2 drug tests. Dude, your boy got caught with a prohibited substance in his system, not once, but twice. And it just so happened to coincide with the very first time he was drug tested in Mexico. So if this is a common occurrence, you can't have it both ways, dude. Is it a common occurrence? Then why didn't you tell him about it? If it is a common occurrence, and you should know better, he should be ravaged by the media. You're being a hypocrite here, Oscar, and you know you are. Now, I get it, Oscar. You're defending your fighter. Promoters defend their fighters. I understand that. I understand defending your fighter during the promotion, during the suspension, which you guys did. I get all that. But not after the fact, dude. You won. You got the titles. You got your guy got the benefit of the doubt from the judges. You won. There's no reason for this shit. You don't have to protect him. You don't have to defend him anymore. He won. It's over. Next point. Saddled with a judge's card of a year ago that he had nothing to do with, the pressure of millions of fans watching, and what many were describing as a must-win to stay relevant, Canelo delivered a near-flawless fight. 2 things. Number 1, it was not near-flawless. The 2 judges who scored it for Canelo gave him 7 rounds. That means they gave Triple G 5 rounds. A near-flawless fight doesn't mean you lose 5 rounds. A near-flawless fight was when Floyd Mayweather fought Canelo Alvarez when he was still a very, very green prospect/junior contender and shut him out. By the way, your boy got the benefit of the doubt from CJ Ross, who somehow found that to be a draw. So this goes back years, dude, of your boy getting the benefit of the doubt. It wasn't a near flawless fight. It was an outstanding fight by both men, but not near flawless. Also, everything said in that sentence applied to Golovkin as well. I'm going to reread this sentence. Picture Golovkin in your head, saddled with a judge's card of a year ago that he had nothing to do with, the pressure of millions of fans watching, and what many were describing as a must-win to stay relevant. Golovkin delivered a near-flawless fight. That applies to both fighters, dude. Again, what are you thinking, man? All right, let's see another one here. Okay, so now he goes into, he responds specifically to absurd comments, quote unquote, that he's heard from the media and from fans. One is that Golden Boy paid the judges to fix the fight, which obviously is an absurd comment. That doesn't happen. There's no backroom deals where people are being paid money. And I hate it when people suggest that, especially people who have a media credential, because it's not how it works. However, there are biases. Judges are biased and can be influenced by powerful promoters, powerful platforms. That does happen. And I think it's very fair for fans and media alike to think that there was some influence and some bias as it relates to the scoring and the judging of these two fights. When you have more than 2/3 of the media and fans who feel one guy won both fights, but only one of the 6 scorecards went his way, that looks a certain way, dude. Anyway, yes, Golden Boy doesn't pay anybody to fix the fight, but here's the sentence. He goes, for the first time I know of, Golden Boy Promotions and Team GGG were allowed to approve a pool of judges. They saw what everyone else did, a close competitive fight, and scored it exactly that way. I agree with the second sentence. It was a close competitive fight. You can make an argument either guy won. But the sentence before that, for the first time I know of, Golden Boy Promotions and Team GGG were allowed to approve a pool of judges. That happens all the time. That happens all the time. So you should have chose better words there, Oscar. Maybe you just screwed up what you were trying to say. But the athletic commissions always give you guys a pool of referees, judges, officials to look through. And if there's somebody that you don't want there, you can say, we don't want them there. And by the way, this statement goes back to what I said earlier about Adelaide Bird. If you're given a pool of judges and you saw Adelaide Bird's name on it, how in the living heck did you approve her? What are you smoking? Tom Loffler's statement that he doesn't know if Golovkin can win a decision in Las Vegas. Oscar is calling Tom Loffler, you guys said, I'm paraphrasing here, he said, I don't know if my fighter can win a decision in Las Vegas. Oscar De La Hoya is calling that statement absurd. What, dude, whatever you're on, give me some, because that must be some good shit. This entire letter is you defending your fighter 48 hours after the biggest win of his career and your promotional career, and you call Tom Loffler absurd for suggesting he doesn't think his fighter can win a decision in Las Vegas. He's defending his fighter too. It's what you guys are supposed to do. He's defending his fighter in a losing situation where he didn't get the benefit of the doubt. He didn't get things his way. You're calling that absurd in a letter doing nothing but defending your fighter after winning and get everything your way. You don't think that's a tad bit hypocritical? 22,000 people aren't going to crowd into the T-Mobile Arena and watch Golovkin fight and blast out the likes of Dominic Wade, Willie Monroe Jr., or Vanes Martirosyan. He is going to need to fight a higher caliber of competition and then fight better than the opponent to earn a victory in the mecca of boxing. I'm just going to reel off some names here, guys, because now Oscar De La Hoya is insulting Golovkin's his opponents that he's fought in, let's see, Los Angeles, all 3 of those opponents were in Los Angeles. Let's talk about opponents that Canelo has fought in Las Vegas. Jose Cito Lopez, Alfredo Angulo, Arislandi Lara, Amir Khan, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. The last 2 I named were at T-Mobile, thousands of dollars for ringside seats and on pay-per-view with shit undercards. But you're going to blast them for fighting Dominic Wade, Willie Monroe Jr., Vanes Martirosyan at the Forum or at the StubHub Center? But you're charging people $80 to fight Amir Khan and Chavez Jr.? Dude, I don't know, Oscar. This is not one of your brightest moments. He continues, but it is a sport, boxing, is a sport that also faces competition not only from the outside in the form of other more widely watched leagues, but from inside where the fractured nature of boxing has made it tougher and tougher for the best to fight the best. I agree with that statement. And in that paragraph, Oscar's just talking about boxing is great, it's on the come up, it's coming back a little bit, but there's still all this infighting. What the hell do you think this letter is going to accomplish, Oscar? Do you think it's going to make it easier to make big fights with other promoters when this kind of shit comes out? Again, after the fact, 48 hours after your boy got the W, seeing what happened in Vegas where the house fighter tends to get the benefit of the doubt for the most part. I mean, we saw it with Andre Ward, Sergey Kovalev, we saw it with Floyd Mayweather and plenty of other fighters. Do you think that makes it easy to make big fights? If you really cared, and dude, I give Oscar a ton of credit. They have worked with other promoters to make some big fights in recent years. They truly, truly have, including Canelo-Golovkin. But if we were not just gouging fans for the money and really interested in putting it on in a neutral playing field, the biggest, baddest fights in a neutral playing field, you know damn well Jerry Jones wanted this first fight in Texas at Arlington Stadium where you could have put 90,000 butts in seats and broke the record Joshua and Klitschko set over in London. You know damn well there was an offer put up from Jerry Jones. You know that there was interest from Dodger Stadium in Los Angeles. There was interest from Madison Square Garden in New York. You didn't have to put this in Vegas and charge people thousands and thousands of dollars for these seats. You didn't have to move us in the media back 50 yards to smash in more ringside seats last Saturday. You didn't have to do that, Oscar. So part of making the big fights tougher and tougher to get done is all of this, okay? So you're being a hypocrite here. Then there's another paragraph. Just look at Celebrity Row to see how special Saturday night was. And he names off all these celebrities: LeBron James, Will Smith, Mark Wahlberg. I don't give a shit how many celebrities were there. I care how many diehard boxing fans were there. That's what I care about. That's what I watch and monitor as I cover events in different markets. That's what you should care about too, Oscar. Again, it is getting tougher and tougher to make the biggest fights. Boxing is fractured. There's platforms all over the place. When you go for the money, and by the way, Oscar's not the only one doing this. Tom Loffler is guilty of this as well because Team Golovkin and Tom Loffler went for the money and they knew what they were buying into and they did that, so they can't bitch that much because they knew what they were going to when they came to Vegas. But guys, it is getting tougher and tougher to make the biggest fights. If you go for the money, it's going to Vegas. If you're trying to make things as even as possible, you don't go to Vegas. Until we start seeing these huge, massive fights, regardless of who the damn promoter is, go to LA, go to New York, go to Dallas, some other market somewhere. It's going to be harder to make it happen, and the fans are going to feel ripped off, okay? So that's what I feel about this letter. Let me see, did I miss anything? No, that's pretty much it. Again, say what you will about me, guys, but I just find a lot of that letter to be hypocritical bullshit. Let me know what you think. Comment below, like, share, subscribe. I'll see you at the fights.